Good tune you got there going, man.
Hello.
It's a good intro.
Yes, indeed. I don't know what this was,
I just hear
but
dogs barking in the background, so
yeah,
it's all
because
good.
my dogs are dogs.
So if you just clamp out going, hold that thought. Shut up.
Yeah.
Hey, no judgment, bro. It's all good. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest and greatest episode of the Battle Bros podcast. My name is Mac. My co-host over here to my side, this is Alamo. We are the Battle Bros. How the hell are you? Welcome to the show. If you haven't been on the show
The Battle
before,
Bros.
yes, yeah. If you haven't seen or heard the show before, we're two guys that have known each other since high school. Have remained friends since that time, which is longer than either one of us would like to publicly admit, but we have in the past. We have both went on to serve in the army in various capacities. Alamo was active duty. I was in the National Guard. He went to Iraq. I went to Afghanistan. We're like yin and fucking yang over here. It's wild. So yeah, we do a podcast. We talk about issues related to the military and veteran community, but it's not just limited to that demographic. We also talk to anybody who will listen, basically. First responders, all that good stuff. Law enforcement, firefighters, EMTs, first responders, all that good stuff. This kind of is geared towards yourself as well. We do this to pay homage to a friend of ours. We'll get into that at the end of the episode. I don't know why I keep looking over my left. Like there's something over here, just a bunch of junk on my desk. So it's weird.
I mean, there's always something to the left and right.
Exactly.
It's called walls.
Walls. We're gonna break through that fourth wall. Talk to you guys tonight. Wow. We're gonna pull a Wade Wilson. Not gonna be as funny, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of what our dealio is. If you've been on the sorry, if you've listened to the show before, viewed in one way or another, thank you so much for returning. We would ask that you please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell on our various social media platforms. The easiest way is to go to our YouTube channel. Just search Battle Bros Podcast, where you can find all of our episodes on the videos of those of us doing our podcast. I am going to warn the viewers and listeners at home. Yes, it is 9:00 on Friday. Yes, we are both fucking exhausted. Yes, it's been a lot. What a month this week has been, and what a week this day has been.
What a week this month has been.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not quite.
Actually,
The other way around.
What a month this week has
That's
been.
what I just said. Yes, and you fucked it up. Congratulations. Go sulk in the corner. Anyway, so we are going to get into our topic here in a little bit, but first we have some news straight off the press.
One of these days, I'm going to have that, and I'm just going to play it like, and then have it on the soundboard.
It's better. It's better. So it's all good.
In a recent
announcement, Secretary of Defense Peter Hegseth has decided and announced that yet another DoD installation will be reverting back to its older name with a little bit of a caveat. So previously,
uno más caveato.
That too. So previously, we had Fort Liberty, which reverted back to the name of Fort Bragg. However, instead of being named after a Confederate general, it was named after a PFC who served with the 18th Airborne Corps during World War II, and I believe was awarded the Purple Heart and then another high-ranking decoration as well. This time, I didn't put an article up, but I'm going to bring this up real quick, Alamo, so stand by.
Huey.
Oh, okay. So, the base formerly known as Fort Benning changed its name to Fort Moore back in 2021 to honor not only Lieutenant General retired Hal Moore, but his wife as well, for their contributions and service to the Army and to soldiers far and wide, even after he left the service. And this is something that continued all the way up until his unfortunate passing back in, I believe, the late 2010s, the 20 teens, or the early 2020s. I'm not 100% certain.
It's some scenes like that.
Yeah. If you could look that up real quick, Alamo, look up when Hal Moore, Lieutenant General Hal Moore, passed away. So it was the name was changed so that it was not named after a Confederate general, which was yeah. So the reason the name was changed, there was a big push, as we mentioned, to kind of change the name of some of these bases after the Confederate generals. The Confederate general that Benning was named after was somebody that supported slavery. So the decision was made to change it to Fort Moore. Now it is being renamed, reverted back, to the name Fort Benning. However, it is going to be for a gentleman by the name of Fred Benning. He is a Nebraska native, awarded the military's second highest honor for battlefield courage as an 18-year-old corporal in 1918, near the end of World War One. So he was
February 10th, 2017. February 10th, 2017. He was born on February the 13th, 1922. So he actually died 3 days before his birthday.
And he was how old?
He was
the time of his passing.
He was born in 22, and he died in 17. Damn, so he was 3 years shy of 100, or no,
3 days, 3 days, 3 days shy.
5 years shy of 100.
Yeah,
or
so 3 days.
5, yeah,
3
he
days
was
shy of 95. So he was 94.
Yeah, yeah.
So
had he lived to 2022, he'd have been 100.
Yeah.
Lived a nice long
So again,
life.
as we mentioned, they're changing the name back to Fort Benning, but it's going to be the namesake of a corporal that was in World War I, who was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, which is second only to the Medal of Honor. Now, this one brings up a little bit of an issue. So, as we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, or the week prior, Fort Liberty reverted this name back to Fort Bragg, but it was for a PFC that served in World War II, who was a Medal of Honor, or a Purple Heart recipient, I believe, a Bronze Star or a Silver Star, one of the two. I don't recall offhand. Apologize. But now you have a base that was named for a general who absolutely took care of his troops. And it's not just him, it's his wife. It was actually the first time it's been named for a couple. So it's named after the Moores, plurally.
Yeah.
General Moore, General Retired Moore, and then Mrs. Moore. So now we're reverting it back to Fort Benning. And I know, like, when all this started, a lot of us were like, hey, man, I was there when it was Benning. It's always going to be Benning.
Yeah.
But you have it named after somebody who is such a big proponent of not only troops, but of the infantry and whatnot. I mean, hell, there was a freaking movie and a book he was predominantly featured in it. We Were Soldiers Once and Young, where he wrote that, Hal Moore, and also, Joseph Galloway, the reporter who actually went overseas and actually ended up fighting in some of the same battles that Hal Moore was connected with.
Yep.
So does that right the wrong of having it changed in the first place, when it actually, you could argue, they kind of did right by the Moores and naming an army installation after them, where infantry training takes place, you got your ranger headquarters and all that kind of stuff.
And from everything written about, like, I actually was listening to Hal Moore's book, dude. Freaking tactical genius, but he's also the way he freaking cared for his troops was like it was amazing.
It's the kind of stuff that like other leaders should aspire to, and it's like you see that in the movie, like with him, when he is, he's recruiting what was his name, Major Crandall, Bruce Crandall.
Yeah.
Snake ship, I think is what his call sign was. We fly lower than snake ship.
Well, your men look like shit, but your equipment is immaculate.
Yep. I remember
I don't want to fly with you for some reason. That's because
I only recruit the dumb ones. Yeah. Oh god, it was just a different time back then, dude.
I suppose I have a choice in all this.
You sure don't. Wouldn't have it any other way. Dude, I remember when we got done with because I went to boot camp in 2003. So it was like right after they had filmed that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like we got done with our FTX and we did our, the freaking the march back in the Cantonment area. We had our, blood rifle ceremony, our warrior breakfast, and then later that day, like once everybody got like a good right?
Yes.
So after we all got like some
eggs and hash browns.
Oh, I know, dude. Dude, it wasn't much, but in the grand scheme of things, it meant the fucking world, right?
Hell yeah!
Just to have that breakfast and to say that you made it, it was just like, oh.
And it was the fucking and the thing is like, I mean, we were already freaking dog ass tired. We were working on, I think, maybe 3.5 hours of sleep,
something like that.
Drill sergeant woke our asses up in the middle of the night. Hey, get your asses up! You gonna have yourself some warrior breakfast. Hurry up!
When did y'all get back? Did you get back like first thing in the morning?
We got back. I mean,
from FTX.
From because it was late. We were because somebody lost a pair of nods and it was tasked.
That happened to you too?
And it was tasked to the entire company to find that damn thing. Because
I'm sorry, we didn't lose. Was it nods? If I remember correctly,
yours was a rifle.
It was a carry handle. It was a removable carry handle, and we had to go find it. So drill sergeant stuck me in a pup truck, and we drove out there. And I'm sitting there like looking out the road. And I'm just like, dude, I was fucking gone, dude. Oh my god, it was awful.
Yeah. So Jesus. I mean, you're talking about like we would like, pull security and shit, like when we're getting ready to do our 13-mile march, because we were walking up to the area, like where the starting area, where the beginning of the third, like when you go to do the highway or the highway to heaven or the stairway to heaven.
Yeah.
Freaking, we were marching up to the starting point, and we, for whatever reason, I guess we had to stop and like pull security because I guess. I don't remember what happened, but something had to be like somebody was missing something because shit was already like jacked up because we had to be out in the field an extra like I think like 36 hours. So yeah, it was bad. But when we got there to the starting point, like, all right, man, get out there, pull security. Oh, I remember what it was. We were waiting on the damn water buffaloes. We were waiting on the water buffaloes to come in because they were gonna stay behind us. And for whatever reason, like the trucks just they like, I don't know if it was that they were having trouble finding out where we were, or like there was a new driver in the seat, or whatever the hell.
That sounds about right.
But
in the grand scheme of the big army, that sounds about right.
Yeah, but the water buffaloes took a minute to find us. So in the meantime, while we're sitting there waiting, I'm pulling security. I got my big ass freaking rucksack fucking just sitting there right in front of me. I'm sitting there like this with my rifle, just sitting there.
Listen, before you people start judging, if you haven't like almost dozed off or dozed off pulling security, were you even in the military, bro?
Exactly.
Just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's not the right thing to do, but it happens to everybody.
No,
But
yeah.
so I remember we had to do like you do like that
God.
6 miles where you had to like, you're pretty much it's like 6 miles or something and you're like doing the airborne shuffle, kind of doing the hike, jogging for a little
Yep.
bit, walk, and you got to carry like ammo cans full of rocks and like 5-gallon water buckets and water cans and jerry cans. Sucked.
Mhm.
We ended up doing our 6 miles in I think like an hour and 5 minutes, which was I was like, okay, that's pretty good. Yeah, I'm good with that. Then we met up at the tactical assembly area,
I
and
don't
then
remember how long we did ours in.
all the other
I really
platoons
don't.
came in, and then we just all lined up, column of twos, and just went straight into the cantonment area. Everybody else was like, "Woo!" All this kind of shit. And I remember too, man.
Oh,
I
we
was
weren't doing
in.
no cheering. Like, I mean, we had some of the guys go, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
like
'Cause
there
we
were
were all
other
like happy as shit
companies.
that we
There were
finished.
other companies that were on the side of the road, like overhead
Ah,
arm clap and cheer and all that stuff. I just remember like I was miserable because I was in my winter camis because like it's the last clean set I had, and I was just like, ugh. And they were so hot, and I was like, ugh. So
yeah.
we had a place called the Eagle Talon, and it was right up across the road from our barracks site. So we went out in the field, and like they had the freaking like the torches going, and we toasted the infantry, and everybody walks up and get your blood rifles, and then just pop them into your chest, like, yeah. And then from
Did
there,
you get the? Oh, 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 oh.
yeah, it was a little bit more abrupt than that. He just kind of walked up and went. And I mean, I swear you might as well hit me with a sledgehammer. It was the fact that I was tired. I was just like, oh my god, it's over.
Thank you, Chief Sergeant.
God, and it's just all that kind of shit.
How
So like
long
we
did
went.
it like take you to like just tug to get it out of your chest?
Oh, I don't remember.
Because I remember for me it was like,
Oh,
ow.
yeah, it sucked. I remember that. It fucking hurt.
Oh yeah.
But dude, we got back like super early in the morning. It was probably like 5 or something. Everybody kind of rotated through, took a freaking hot shower, and
hell yeah. We were
and
all in
then
PT uniforms and
yeah,
all that
everybody's
good
in there racking PTs and stuff, and we're just like, and then
from
yeah, I
then
remember
on,
like it
it
was
was
either
clean weapons and equipment.
oh I know like for the next week, clean every
Uh,
goddamn thing. But yeah, I want to say like it wasn't Warriors breakfast, like more like Warriors lunch or something. Because like it was middle of the next day and we're getting like all the good and I was just like I was just eating my ass. Oh my god, it was fucking great.
For us, it was Warriors breakfast. The drill sergeants wanted to get shit done because since we were already behind, we needed to clean equipment. We needed to clean rifles, clean everything,
So you
barracks,
could
all of it.
equipment, so you could clear posts and everybody like get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yep.
Anyway, a little bit of a side story there, folks. But hey, live show. What are you gonna do?
Squirrel.
So yeah. So I mean, I get why they're returning the name back to Fort Benning, but does it matter though? Because we're kind of like, like I think there was a statement that came out from General Moore's son, who was just like, I mean, come on, like you got one of the guys who's best known for taking care of the troops, and now we're gonna like just revert it back because
Yeah.
of the initiative behind this in the first place.
I can agree with that. I mean, honestly, this is one of the few where that got renamed that I was like, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean,
this
I
one didn't
agree.
need to be reverted back. I mean, honestly, like I understand the statement, but on that same token, this one was, this one was, I think, more of a win than it was a loss. And I think they did it specifically expecting the next administration, if they wanted to switch something. And yeah. I don't know,
Yeah.
man. I
So
think they
it's
should have just left it alone. I think they're gonna piss off a lot of people.
a little bit of, I mean, yeah, because like I will say when it was renamed, like they did right by the Moors. It's like, oh,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, General Moore, badass, Mrs. Moore, awesome lady for taking care of the troops and helping to do all that stuff. I mean,
Hell yeah.
if you haven't seen the movie, We Were Soldiers, like go watch it, obviously. And it's great for us because, like, when we watched it after Warrior Breakfast and stuff, we're down in the battalion classroom, we're watching it, and it's like, oh yeah, there's the jump towers, yeah, we're all motivated and moto and stuff, and it's like, we're so young and stupid.
Yep. That's exactly what it was.
So yeah, kind of mixed emotions on this one. If they keep going, we'll see what happens and how. If this is just kind of like the middle finger thing, like, hey, we're gonna do what we want. So if you or whatever. So stay tuned. There might be more to come on this.
Does it make sense? Is the question.
The answer is always no. So a little bit of a long intro there, but let's get into our topic. This one's going to be a little bit more of a free flowing conversation. So this is episode 104 of the Battle Bros podcast, and we are talking about obligation. So, what is obligation? Well, shit, I'm glad you asked. Let's talk about it. Obligation is defined as an act or course of action to which a person is morally or legally bound. And it's also defined as a duty or commitment. And it's kind of fitting that we're talking about General Moore. So when he in the movie and in the book Band of well, no, not Band of Brothers.
We Were Soldiers.
We Were Soldiers Once and Young. It talks about him and how he becomes commanding officer of 1st Battalion, 7th Cavalry, which was the same unit that Custer led when he got led into an ambush and to a slaughter. So that weighed heavily on his mind and stuff. And this was in the whole beginning of Vietnam because they were talking about the Air Mobile Division, 1st Cav and whatnot, and how they're kind of like revolutionizing and for the first time really utilizing helicopters as a means to get troops on and off the battlefield in a rapid fashion, right? So this is all like brand new stuff, but you got good leaders. You've got
flying in and out of a combat zone at 125 miles an hour, man. That's got to be something crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty much getting dropped into a hot LZ and figure it out, and we'll be back. So, and there's a great scene where Hal Moore, who's played by Mel Gibson in the movie, is sitting here and he's introducing himself to his officers. So he shows up, Sergeant Major Plumley shows up, the great Sam Elliott. I mean, one of his best fucking roles, people. Like, Sam Elliott being the badass he is, no mustache, shaved, but he's a sergeant major. And he just pulls off the role very, very, very well.
Some bitches calls me grandpa. I'll kill you.
I mean, there's so many great, like, just sergeant major isms, that come from this movie. Sergeant, how do you know what kind of goddamn day it is? Beautiful morning, Sergeant Major. Where do you fucking weatherman now? I mean, because if you've been on active duty, you had a damn sergeant major like that. You're like, oh, that is so true, Jesus.
True.
So, like, what? Did he just sing gospel or something? Like, what the hell's going on here?
No, like that's how he did it in the movie.
I know. I totally know. It is pretty spot on. But during his introduction, Colonel Moore is talking about Sergeant Major Plumley and I come from the paratroopers, where the officer is always the first man out the door. Your status as officers will neither stop you from getting injured or keep you from the danger on the battlefield. And he's very frank, he's very honest, and he had an obligation to train these men because it's a brand new concept. Air Mobile Division is, a new concept in warfare at this time. They're trying to figure all this shit out. So he has an obligation to do the best he can so these men are adequately prepared. And then there's also other hurdles that come up too. So once he gets a good, company or so trained up. And it's like they take a third. The battalions are going through training. I'm sorry, they take a third of his best officers and NCOs to go start another unit. And it's just like, and that's frustrating. I get that, but he's got an obligation is to make sure that these men get home safe. And there's another scene where they're in Doughboy Stadium on Fort Moore, and he's got the whole battalion out there, and everybody's wearing their parade uniform with like their Kevlars and stuff, and they've got the little ascots and their shoulder cord on. And he says, what does he say? I cannot promise you that I will bring you all home alive, but I will promise you this, that every man here will come home, or I will die trying. Like, so help me God. I'm paraphrasing that wildly, awfully. So,
yeah. I think but he got to the point of it.
To put it in Gen Alpha or Gen Z, he understood the assignment. So there's that. Okay, so that's kind of fitting that we're talking about obligation. It kind of came up. So so let's kind of talk about the obligations that we have. So as young people, as younger folks, okay, so we have an obligation as we're growing up and coming up into the world to do our best to prepare ourselves for adulthood, going to school, learning what we can, getting good grades. You also have the obligation of respecting your parents in the household you live in. You're not having to pay rent. You're only just going to school and then have your stuff there. So the obligation is like, you can't pay rent because you don't have a job, but you got to do something to help out. So cut the grass, do the laundry. You have that obligation.
Heck yes.
And then the big obligation comes, at 18, you graduate high school, you have an obligation to go out and take part in society. Okay. Not just to go out there and be a drain on something, but just to produce, Correct. Like JFK said, ask not what your country ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Exactly. So you have that obligation as well.
Not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country.
Pretty much.
You got to say it with that Bostonian accent.
Nobody messes with Diamond Joe Quimby, which The Simpsons.
Oh yeah, nobody messes with Diamond Joe Quimby.
Such a great character. It's so good. But also, so then you go and like for both of us, where we both enlisted, we both signed up. So we have a service obligation. So we're on the hook for even though might not be explicitly known, but you're on the hook for 8 years. So like for myself, I was a drilling reservist for 6 years. So I had to go to drill 1 week in a month, and then for 2 weeks annual training in the summer. And that was the first 6 years. Now I did also deploy during that time, but you have that obligation for that. And then the last 2 years, you still have to go to what's called muster drills. So you pretty much like we had ours at USF, the Sun Dome at USF, the basketball stadium. And you just had a bunch of different like stations you had to go to. They check your vision, they check your heart health, they check, your body fat index, a bunch of other things, make sure your contact information is still correct, your email's still good.
Essentially, they want to make sure you're combat ready if they ever need to call you.
Well, that, or if they just need to get a hold of you, like, hey, Specialist McGinnis, guess what? Pack your shit. You got all expenses trip paid to the crap hole. Hey, thank God that didn't happen. But so you're on the obligation for that, okay? By time signing up, you do all that kind of crap. So like for folks that go through one of the service academies, when you have them pay for your schooling, you have a service obligation that you are required to repay. That David Robinson, the basketball player, that's why they call him the Admiral, because he had to do his Navy time first before he could go and play basketball. So same kind of stuff. Um, and then like, the obligations, once you get to your unit, doing the training as much as you can, being, within the person next to you, so you don't let those down. You're, obligated to the guys in your squad, your platoon, your section, your fire team, your battle
Yep.
buddy team, to and a lot of times, if you're that person that's kind of maybe dragging behind what somebody might refer to as substandard, then they're going to be like, we're obliged to help you through it. So we're going to do a little bit extra squad PT. Yeah. Because
Mhm.
we don't want you sucking and dragging us down kind of shit. So, yeah. I know I've been rambling for like 10 minutes, dude. What do you got on this so far?
No, honestly, yeah, like what I really think is what I really think, like when you go into like basic training and stuff like that, when you go and you're going to do all these things, I think what the real purpose of it is, it's they're drilling you, but they're drilling you to kind of teach you like the obligation of keeping each other accountable. Because if you really think about it, you really are obligated to each other, because each other's all you're going to have when you're out there. Um, so when it comes down to it, as Colonel Hal Moore said, when the rubber meets the road, freaking, you know, you're going to be in the combat situations. Men may die, men may survive, men may be injured, whatever, right? But there's an obligation to each other to survive, to destroy the enemy. Because if there's none of us, there's no way to destroy said enemy. Um, if there's one thing that America's been really freaking good at, is, you know, dropping bombs and destroying shit. We are the supreme freaking ass kickers when it comes to combat freaking readiness. Um, Unfortunately, not lately. I feel like things are changing around. So I had to caveat that and then bring it back. But yeah, I think to your point, Mako, that yeah, freaking yeah, absolutely 100% of that is like, they're drilling the idea of, being obligated to essentially watch each other's ass, because if we don't, we die.
Right. And even though we got so like Brian and I were actually talking about this today, and we were kind of having this interesting conversation about how to he went to Iraq when everything first started in like '03. Okay.
Yeah.
And then he went to Afghanistan once things have been going on for a while. I want to
And
say
then
somewhere around 2010, maybe. When his second daughter was, I think, I want to say she was born in 2010. Don't quote me. Um, she's in high school now, so she should be about 15. So 2010, we'll just say. And he was talking about how, how things were so different. So like, when everything kicked off in '03, they were establishing things in establishing where the green zone was, all that kind of stuff. And they didn't have like, you got maybe 15 minutes on a sat phone.
fun fact, we actually used to drive through the green zone to
Oh yeah.
get where we were going when we were stationed in Baghdad. Yeah,
So
pretty cool actually. About that.
he was explaining how like maybe once a month they got 15 minutes worth of time on a sat phone to call home. Now, fast
Mm.
forward 7-ish years in 2010, the war is in full swing. Troop rotations are in full swing. We could talk pretty much. He could talk to his wife at the time pretty much almost every night. So, and there's a good and a bad thing about that because
Laptops and Wi-Fi.
laptops and Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff. Now, we were
Shit,
explaining
we had
how
it.
right, but the point, what the way the conversation was going is like, that's not always a good thing because you're obligated to be be mission ready at all times in a forward area. And when you're able to get a hold of somebody back home on a regular basis, it's like now you're worrying about bills and family and daycare and all this kind of stuff. So does your obligation go down because your mission readiness goes down? You could argue that point several different ways.
Yeah.
But and that kind of goes to that. And I'm sorry, I'm making a lot of movie quotes here tonight, but in the movie Act of Valor, when all the boys are on the beach and stuff before that platoon kicks off down range, Lieutenant Rourke was sitting there with Chief Dave. He's like, "Listen, if things need fixing, tell us now, because once we get down range, if something's out of whack, it affects everybody." And it's like, he knew that he was obligated to that whole platoon, making sure guys had their shit wired tight, everything was accountable, everything was good to go, all that kind of stuff. And it's like having that obligatory leadership style, obligation to your troops and stuff, like that's paramount, absolute paramount. So now, the other thing I was going to say is, so at first we talked about, having the obligation to our parents, okay, as kids growing up, becoming young adults, into adulthood, that kind of thing. Then we flip the script and we become the parents. So now we're obligated to our kids in a certain respect to give them every opportunity to grow up, to foster, to prepare themselves for adult life. I actually just had a pretty interesting conversation with my daughter this week. She is partaking in something after school, curricular wise, extracurricular, and she was like, I don't want to go. And I'm like, well, you're kind of obligated to go because this is the last practice. Oh, and we've already paid a lot of money for it, so you're going. So
better believe it.
And I wasn't quite that blunt and brash about it. I tried to be a little bit more measured and diplomatic in my approach and whatnot. But still, it's like I was like, sweetie, this is.
You always try to be.
I try to be. And I explained to her, I was like, sweetie, I said, you got to understand, this is good practice for being an adult, because as an adult, you're going to have to do stuff every single day
you don't want to do.
You really don't want to fucking do. So I was like, get used to it now. It's that way. It's not a foreign concept when it smacks you right in the face and you're just like, oh, shit. So.
Hey, you want to see my impression of a hot dog?
What the hell is that from?
How dare you?
What is it from?
Mrs. Doubtfire. Robin Williams talking to the
the
lady.
It took me a second. It took me a second. My fault. Anyway, so something that I found, I just kind of want to talk about, going back to just the general sense of obligation. So there's some different types of obligation. Don't worry about putting this up, Alamo. I'm just going to kind of breeze through this real quick. Don't worry about it. So written obligations is basically a contract legally binding two people into an agreement. Each person becomes responsible for doing their part of the contract. A legal contract, which does not need to be made into writing, consists of an offer, an acceptance of that offer, an intention to bind one another in legal agreement, and a consideration, something of value to be exchanged. Now, what I do, I grew up listening to stories from my grandfather and my dad, talking about how things used to be, back in my day, but in a good context. Pretty much. So, when you shake hands, like that was the biggest thing and that impressed me. And I wish that was still a thing. Like when you shake hands and have a gentleman's agreement or an interpersonal agreement, you're obligated to see that through, because if you don't, you're going to be like, oh, don't trust him. He's bag of ass over here wearing the ass hat. You can't trust him for nothing. And I think that's something that younger people just really need to freaking understand. Like when you say you're going to do something, you got to do it. Otherwise, how are they going to trust you? They want to get the trust and the respect without putting in the hard work to get it. And it's just like, it don't work like that there, Scooter. So, that kind of stuff. But then, as we talked about, like with parents and life in general, the obligation to our kids, you also talk about like obligation of people in public service. Okay. So, and not to get too far into the weeds with a political angle on this, or just a political point of view, you have, as somebody who is elected to an office, whether it's on the very small municipal level, on the city level, county, the state, maybe even the national government, on the federal level, like you have an obligation to represent your constituents for whatever you're representing. You also have an obligation if you're on like a committee or a subcommittee or something of that sort to be prepared. Like you see, it especially bugs me. Like I hate the fact that we rely so heavily on the smear campaigns when we're, instead of just talking about us, we talk about what they're doing wrong, what they could do better. It's like, judge yourself before you judge others, like the good book says. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm
Indeed.
a super stout religious person, but just I've always tried to stick with that example. Like I was talking to a good friend of mine.
Remove the log from your eye before thou judgest the splinter in your cohort's eye. Something like that.
That sounded
It's,
good. I mean, I'm down for it. So,
yeah.
but I was talking to a good friend of mine, and she's originally from overseas, Japan, Okinawa area, and she's like, "Yeah, if you're campaigning for an office, you don't do that. You just talk about what you're gonna do. It's just considered like dishonorable and stuff. It's like all this kind of crap. Don't worry about it. You have an obligation to just go out there and get yourself elected and do what you say you're gonna do, and
Bloody
then
Americans.
freaking do it. It's how many times you see like, or has the example been given in the past, like you get people that get elected and then just never fucking show up. It's like, where's the
Yeah,
obligation to your constituents? Like
correct.
you're representing them, you're not there because you're down there, living sipping mai tais and shit down in the Bahamas and stuff. It's like, why did we elect you? So, general
Exactly.
sense example, not pinpointing anybody, not trying to get into the weeds on that, but just giving an example of that. Okay. Same thing. Like, here's another good example: the obligation of teachers, anybody in education nowadays. Holy shit. First off, props to everybody in that field because you are amazing souls to put up with the nonsense that you're putting up with nowadays between all the
Especially
extra
with the way kids
additional,
act now.
with the way the kids act, with all the additional requirements,
I mean,
having
I'm
to.
sure we were shitheads when we were young, but good God. Like I look back at it and I'm like, I was a shithead, but I don't know if I was that much of a shithead.
Jeff Foxworthy said it great.
You know,
He's like, just one
it's like,
time, I'd love to have somebody go on one of these talk shows and just be like, my mom was great, my dad was great, I'm just a shithead, and that's the problem. Like, just tell it from the mountaintop like it is, man. But getting back to what I was saying, the fact that like
yeah,
teachers, anybody in any type of educational capacity, teachers, whether you work at elementary school, a middle school, a high school, college, tech school, a preschool, whatever the case may be, like the obligation that you take on to take your students and prepare them for the next level, for the next step, just to get them where they, like I have worked with some fantastic people that take that obligation to heart and they just do the absolute, I mean, sometimes with almost no
do
support,
the
with no
absolute utmost,
funding,
which is good.
with no funding. Sometimes they just, they're miracle workers, they make shit happen, and it's just like, it's insane how you get some people that take that obligation and it's like this binding fiber of their personality. It's like, you will get every opportunity to succeed and I'm going to see personally to that, and it's phenomenal. It really is. you know Especially with nowadays, with how kids act out and lash out and stuff, and they do it just
Yeah.
because it's a challenge or this, that, and the other. Oh, let's do this because I saw it on TikTok, or
Or they do it because they're just entitled. They think like,
yes.
the world owes them something because
How old are
TikTok
you?
told them so.
15. You ain't owed shit. Get your ass put in,
Yeah.
do work,
Like,
earn the respect. Okay,
and
straight up.
it's crazy to me because, you know, what all right, going back to, actually we're gonna bring it back to like ROTC when we were kids. Like
I had a feeling you would.
One thing I got from ROTC, and this is something that I really thought about, was the amount of emphasis that ROTC put on just being a good citizen,
That's the
doing your
mission statement
civic duty.
to encourage young people to become better citizens. Yep.
Yeah. Doing your civic duty as just a regular Joe Schmo citizen. I mean, granted, yeah, there were some of us that, got out of there. I got out of high school. We did ROTC the entire time. We went and joined the military, blah, 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 blah. Sure, great. But the amount of emphasis that is put into teaching young people how to be better citizens, right? It taught you that there's not just like, gimme, 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 gimme from society, right? There's a give. You have to give of yourself to be a better citizen. There is more to, like, I'm sorry, but here in the United States, we're not about gimme, 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 gimme. Although there's a huge amount of people here in the country that want to do that. I'm sorry. And I'm speaking to some family members here as well. And I have to say it. I'm not calling out
The
names, but
views that Alamo speaks are his and his alone, and do not reflect his co-host or the theme of the
correct.
show.
Right. To those who know,
Getting off in the weeds.
To those who know. Look, we're not meant to be just given every freaking thing. Okay, we have to do everything we can to bust our behinds. And this goes for anybody that I've known throughout my life that have called an acquaintance or a friend. All right. It is our responsibility to do more and more for those around us, and in order to gain the things that we have, right? There's not some magic button where we just are given everything. We are obligated as people to do the best damn thing, to do the best we can freaking all can, and give to our families, our communities, all that stuff. It's not just go to the ballot box. It's not just go and do this, right? There's a lot more to being a US citizen than what a lot of what everybody's been hearing. Like, we have an obligation to do more to make our representatives do more, if that makes sense, because they are our representatives for a reason. They do not speak for us unless we have spoken to them. That is our obligation as citizens. And I'm sorry, but if things have gone a certain way in an election, it's because the people have spoke. It's just plain and simple. That's how it is. And I don't know. I'm really tired of the childish back and forth nonsense. And this is coming from everybody on social media.
The bickering.
The bickering.
The bitching.
If you don't like the way something went, dude, just go out and do something. Go out and do something. Don't expect somebody to do it for you. Go out and do something. Plain and simple. Like, look, as citizens, that is our civic duty. We are to make sure our representatives know what we are thinking so that they could go out and represent us properly. If they don't represent us properly and they're working on their own freaking will, fire them by vote and vote somebody else back in. I'm off my soapbox.
You're good, brother. You're good, man. It suits you well. You could get into motivational speaking. I live in a van down by
the river.
No, not throwing any shade, bro. No, but
I just don't like the whole handout thing, man. It's just
so I get it.
And petty.
I get it. You bring up a very good point. Let me kind of circle this back around, and then I'm going to leapfrog somewhere else with this. So you bring up a very good point with ROTC, because like everything, so the idea behind that is like you learn how to have that attention to detail, take care of uniform. You have to have an 1/8 inch space here, 1/4 inch space here, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Your name tag has to be centered on the pocket flap on your uniform. You wear your rank insignia on your epaulets, all that kind of stuff. Everything all the ribbons that you get are earned by going in there, taking part in the obligation to learn and be a better citizen, and you earn all that stuff. They don't just give out hand me down stuff.
Correct.
If you expect that in ROTC, you got another thing coming.
Yeah.
Especially when like we went through, you know,
Yeah,
the
and not that I mean a lot of the information was retained, but they taught us a lot about the Constitution too, and why the Constitution is important.
oh yeah. I mean, like you should, and maybe
It is
not
obligatory, in
ROTC.
my opinion, that everybody should know at the very least the top 5 amendments.
Yep.
At the least the top 5. Those are the most important ones. You know what I'm saying?
You have the Bill of Rights, and you learn the first 10 though. So,
Exactly.
but I mean, it's simple things like I was in a restaurant one time with my dad, and I was right out of high school. I was in the military, I think. But I was working with my dad, and I think we were at like a Hooters or something. And I called a waitress over, and she was at the back of the table. I said, "Excuse me." I said, "Just so you know, you have an American flag up there that is improperly displayed, just so you can tell the some manager about." She goes, "Really?" I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." It's oriented with the hoist up towards the top of this wall. And if no matter how it's displayed, whether it's horizontally or if it's vertically, the Union is in the top left-hand corner. So it should look like you're hanging a battle flag from the hoist. So that way the Union's on the left-hand side, looking down, all that stuff. She goes, "How do you know that?" I was like, I took ROTC in high school and I'm in the military, and that's not the way you do that. She's like, "Oh." And it's like little things like that. It's like that's why like Boy Scouts are awesome, because you just learn how to do so much stuff. Like all those merit
Yeah.
badges, like you just go out there and you learn cool stuff. It's crazy. So, but
And
anyway,
it teaches you public service. The
public
Boy Scouts do a
service,
lot of
taking
that, right?
pride in stuff, and being a more like I have every intention of teaching my daughter as much stuff as she can. Like my daughter, when she starts driving, okay, you got a flat, I'll come there. I'm gonna help you change it. I'm not gonna. I'm the first time I'm gonna show you. The second time I'll supervise. The third time I'll be there for moral support. Like that's how that's gonna work. Because that's kind of what was done with me. It's like, okay, you figure it out, and then you go from there. So that way you learn it. You don't have to call and rely on
Right.
somebody to do it. So what I was gonna leapfrog to. So we're talking about ROTC, but let's go back and I want to leapfrog ahead, kind of bring this full circle, talking about the military again. We have an obligation to take care of those who have stood in harm's way on our country's part. Okay.
Damn
I'm
right.
not just saying that because that includes me. I'm saying that because there's a lot of people who fall through the cracks, who don't get
There
help,
sure are.
and they could use help. I mean, especially in a day and age where, there's a lot of, depending on where you live, like I know here in Florida, there's a lot of legislature being passed to make it a pretty pro-veteran friendly state. Um, you also have a lot of folks now, like our good friend Danny Alvarez, who is on our episode 069. We interviewed him. He is a state representative for District 69 here in the state of Florida, which includes Hillsborough County. What the heck's going on with my chair? Okay, sorry. I had something stuck under the wheel of my chair here. I was like, um, you have a lot of these military guys that are kind of taking up that obligation. They did their time in uniform, but they're still serving. They're still feel this obligation to serve to those in their communities. Instead of being the nation, now it's a little bit more smaller scale. The community, whether it's your state, your local community, your city, whatever the case may be. So, you know, it's it's so important. Like I've said this story a bunch of times, but I struck up a conversation one time with a guy who looked. It was in the it was in the store that I was working in, and I noticed he had the Rising Eagle, which is a warrant officer insignia. So I was like, "Oh, hey, what's going on, Chief?" He goes,
I know this story well.
"How the hell did you know that?" I'm like, "I saw that there." He goes, "Oh, good eye." So like we struck up a conversation. Come to find out, he flew choppers in Vietnam. And he's like, we're obligated to make sure that you guys don't come home to the shit that we had to come home to. And like
Mhm.
that's a big, big, big deal. Another good example in the movie
Would you say
Jarhead.
it's a big deal?
No, don't want to find ourselves in a pickle. Wow. Oh, I feel evil for making that. That was low hanging fruit.
Dad
Jesus.
jokes.
But if you think about it, like you look at that scene from Jarhead, where they're on the bus coming back, you got Staff Sergeant Sykes sitting up there, you've got Swafford at the front of the bus, a bunch of those dudes, and you got that older Marine vet who kind of jumps on the bus
Hell yeah,
and
Marines.
he's like, "Can I sit on your bus, Staff Sergeant?" And
Hell
like
yeah.
he never got to experience that. And that's at least the vibe I got from that scene is like he's actually partaking in this because he never got to
Never happened for
participate in
him.
one. Yeah. So it's
Because
like
a
it's a
lot of
big
guys
deal.
back then were shunned,
Yeah.
to put it lightly.
Yeah. So, we have an obligation to remember folks that have come before us, an obligation to help prepare the folks that come after us if they choose to take up a call or a profession, whether it's the military, whether it's something else, regardless. We also have an obligation to remember those that, have given the ultimate sacrifice or have, unfortunately gone down a road of no return as a result of that service. Um, I'm gonna kind of just jump into this now because it's a good way to segue this to kind of closing out and stuff. So, if you're new to this show, we had a friend named John that we worked with, and just a great dude. I mean, we say he's funny, we say this or that. We've got some great memories. Like I actually ran into somebody today, and I was just kind of thinking back. I was like, yeah, we did some dumb shit. It was awesome. It was awesome. Yeah. And they were happy memories and they were funny and all this other stuff. But like besides all that, this was a guy that would literally give you the shirt off his back if he needed to. Just very concerned about other people and whatnot. Um, and was just a good solid dude to be around. Like he made work fun, just made talking fun and whatnot. Um, we would just hang out after work sometimes to shoot the shit and it was great. And unfortunately, he kind of it got to the point where I would assume he had some demons and kind of solved a temporary problem with a permanent solution. And you know, that's kind of the progenesis of this show when we were talking about getting together and making all this work, what that message was going to look like. And we found out about our friend John that he was no longer with us. And for me that was kind of like a call to arms or like my aha moment, it's like, okay, that's pretty much decided. this
Aha.
is this is yeah, kind of like that exactly. That was kind of the moment where it's like this is what we need to do. Like there's an obligation to help remember this guy because he was just such a solid dude. If he was somebody that was just an absolute curmudgeon-y shithead and just was like always fucking with people, it's like
Yeah, curmudgeon.
I wouldn't feel that kind of that responsibility there, that obligation to do this. But with as great of a dude as he was, um, on so many levels, like Alamo was talking about, doing a podcast. And it's like at first I was a little bit, reserved. I was like, I don't know anything about that. He's like, come on, it's not that hard. And then we found out about John not being with us anymore, and it's like that's a sign. That's somebody putting their finger on the scale, going, that's what needs to happen. Boop. All right, I'm listening. I got you. So, that's why we tell that story every single time we close out the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was somebody worth knowing. He was somebody worth having around. And, there's a lot. We've had a lot of casualties from the global war on terror. I think it's around 4,000. But the number of people that are taking themselves out via suicide is just, it's, it's it's hard to think about without getting caught up in the gravity of it, and it's not getting any better. It's getting worse in some respects. So by doing this is our way to kind of bring attention to the fact that, like, we owe an obligation of reverence, of thanks, of, appreciation to the folks that, said and signed their names on a dotted line and said, this is up to and including my life if it needs to be. You know, I find it very disgraceful at times that people get used for whatever type of application, whether it's the military, whether it's first responder, and they can't do that anymore. And they're just like, just pushed off to the side. Next. It's kind of like, what do they say in the Starship Troopers? Fresh meat for the grinder kind of thing.
Yep.
So that's sorry. That's how I feel about obligation. Didn't really read too many articles on this when we did some research on it, but this
Yeah.
one kind of spoke from a different kind of level.
Yeah.
The last thing I do want to say, so since we talked about, the obligation to those that have, given themselves part of their life to the service of this country, with folks like John, who, have unfortunately were gone before their time, let that serve as a reminder of the obligation to yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
In this day and age, there are a lot of things going on. There's stressors from work, there's stressors of financial considerations, there's all kind of things going on. It is so crucially important that you have that obligation to take care of yourself. And sometimes that looks hard. Sometimes you have to that comes in a lot of different forms. It could come from group therapy, it can come from this, that, the other. It could come from just kind of like pulling back, reassessing your priorities, whatever the case may be. Sometimes you have to make your obligation to yourself, you have to make some hard decisions. And it is so crucially important, especially when you're talking about work, when you're talking about yourself. Take care of yourself, because if you are no longer there at your job, they're going to just empty out your desk and put the next poor soul there to carry on so they can keep the money making machine going. I know that sounds morbid and dark and like, but
it's true.
There's a little bit of truth. There's a lot of truth to that. So
It's true.
please
You're nothing but a
remember,
number. You are replaceable, as anywhere. Like, it's very rare when you find a place that you find that kind of home where they don't see you as replaceable. So just think about that.
again, like General Moore, his obligation to the soldiers and stuff far exceeded his time in uniform. He still went out there and was involved with Army charities, involved with, big Army as a whole, even though he no longer served in uniform and stuff. So, I mean, it's absolutely commendable and just an amazing example to live up to. So, but
I would also say, I mean, and honestly too, I would also say it's like it's our obligation to be informed as citizens. Like, I'm so sick and tired of people talking out the side of their mouth, or better yet, talking out of their ass, about things that they have no idea what they're talking
both
about.
sides of their mouth too. So,
Both sides of their mouth too. Yeah. Like, dude, think of it as an obligation to inform yourself on the facts and on the situations at hand before you start talking about anything. Okay. It Because Facebook, not a reliable source. Instagram, not a reliable source. There are plenty of reliable sources out there. Okay. Like, get your ass out there, do the real research. Me and Mac, like, when we source material, we're looking at things like case studies. We're looking at articles from freaking valid and freaking validated freaking news sources. We're looking at a bunch of different things. It's amazing how much you actually start to begin to know when you actually start to look at things from people who actually know. You have to make sure that you're talking about things in a proper manner, because if you're not informed, you're not making informed decisions. Informed decisions take away from things. So, yeah, oblige yourself by being an informed individual, uh, because it allows you to serve not only the people you love, but it also allows you to serve your community better. And I'm going to leave it alone.
Yep. So yeah, that's our conversation talking about obligation. Again, we didn't want to read too many articles on this. We kind of just wanted to talk from the heart because of how we felt about this and whatnot. So um, if you have any comments on this, please feel free to leave comments when this shows up on our Facebook page, or any other platforms, which we'll talk about here in just a few minutes or whatnot. But to kind of rehash as we start to close this out, this episode, to rehash, Alamo and I have been friends for a long time, and
Mhm.
we used to work together in the retail sector and left that and kind of went our own ways. And one of the guys that we worked with was John, like we were talking about. So, we discussed getting back together. Ultimately, decided on the podcast. Um, little hesitant because, like I said, I don't know nothing about a podcast. And he's like, "Dude, they put a monkey in space." I'm like, "Yeah, that's a good point." So
Valid. Valid.
valid, solid point, solid evidence,
Solid.
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 I was going more Massachusetts than more, Trump. So anyway, I got invited by Almo's lovely wife Tisha to help with an event for her website channel called Flipside Mentorship. If you want to see good work and people who take their obligation of helping others seriously, check out flipsidementorship.com. It is fantastic. I am proud to be associated with them loosely. They do their own thing. They don't need much help from me, but we do events coming up. We'll have one coming up here towards the end of the summer. It's our hold on.
Beatles buddies.
It's our Battle Buddies event where we work with Flipside Mentorship, and we talk to little kids about different things and whatnot.
Honor, loyalty, duty, obligation.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to take part of that. We've done it what 2 or 3 times now, twice.
Last year would have been third year.
I couldn't make it that year, yeah, because she had stuff going on.
Mhm.
So you had to kind of go solo. I know that sucked. Sorry. But
Still had
it's
fun.
I got you, man. But it's a good thing to be part of. So we worked that event, and then afterwards, we kind of Alamo got the itch like, dude, we should do something together. So we talked about the podcast, kind of a little bit like, I don't know if that's gonna work or whatnot. And then we found out about our good friend John, who, as I mentioned earlier, solved the temporary problem with a permanent solution and committed suicide. So that for me was like our catalyst to get everything started. In the process of discussing what our mission and what our vision was going to be for the podcast and for this journey that we've been on, we developed the Bros Code. So what the Bros Code is 4 easy tenets that will help you to kind of keep your head in the right place when things start getting hard, difficult, rough. You're uncertain of things, so on and so forth. Okay, if you can just remember the letters BROS, you will be in good shape. Okay. Be tenacious. No matter what you choose to do in life, do it with tenacity, do it with vigor, do it with gusto. Look at the example of General Moore. Even though he left the military, he was a tenacious leader. He was an engaged speaker. He went out and was still all about the troops and for the troops. And that included his lovely wife as well. Um, that is the kind of example that everybody should kind of set their sights on and strive to. Okay. The tenacity of it. No matter what you choose to do in life, do it to the utmost of your abilities and your capabilities. Okay. In the words of the great Ron Swanson, don't half-ass two things, whole ass one thing. Be tenacious. R, refuse to surrender. There's going to be those obstacles that come up when you're trying to accomplish something. It happens. Okay. There's going to be internal struggle. There's going to be, external factors that kind of come into that. Whatever the case may be, If you get knocked down in the dirt, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, dust yourself off, knock the mud off yourself, pull out your compass,
bootstraps,
bust out your compass, shoot into azimuth, and continue on and keep going. Okay. Refuse to surrender. Oh, obliterate your obstacles. When those obstacles do come up, don't let them get you flustered. Don't let them get you sideways. Don't let them get you twisted. Okay. If you have a trail you're going down and there's an obstruction, circumvent around it, circumnavigate, get around it, do what you got to do. Go over, go under, breach a wall, C4 Bangalore, all that stuff. Obliterate those obstacles and keep going until you hit your mark. Hit the X, accomplish, and hit the OBJ, all that good stuff. Okay, obliterate your obstacles. S, most importantly, seek out help in a time of need. As we mentioned with our good friend John, you know, there is nothing we can do to bring him back. If him being here meant that we weren't doing this show, I would be okay with that. As much as I love doing this show and what it's turned into for me personally and also for my co-host over here, it has really kind of changed our lives. And I don't mean to say that to sound grandiose, but like in a way, it's like it really has. You know, I carry a few of my of our business cards in here, and like I'll just hand them out randomly, and people are just like, "Oh, okay, that's kind of cool, man. Yeah, I'll check it out." And like we got a new subscriber just from me having a conversation. Now I don't give. Okay, let me find a good way to word this. My daughter asks me all the time, "How many subscribers do you have? How many followers?" I'm like, "Sweetie, that's not the metric that we're trying to keep track of. We're trying to get a message out there and not measure a metric. You know, it's great to have followers. It's great to have people that, you know, like what you're talking about. But if we can just stop one person from going down that road like John did, then we've done our job. Okay. And we're going to strive to do it again and again and again and again." Unfortunately, like I said, there's no way to bring John back. And you know, I just wish he would have reached out, or maybe if he did reach out, somebody would have heard it a little bit louder and we were able to still have him here. Okay.
Yeah.
If you ever find yourself in a position where you feel like you're not able to carry on and you just want to end it all, if you feel like harming yourself, I would tell you to stop. Okay. There are resources out there to help you. If you feel like harming yourself or you have intrusive thoughts, there is a National Suicide Prevention Hotline. You can reach it one of a couple of ways. You can dial 1-800-273-8255. Again, that's 1-800-273-8255. Just basically just dial 1-800-273-TALK. Tango, Alpha, Lima, Kilo. 1-800-273-TALK. You can also dial on a cellular device, you can dial 988. Again, that's 988. Okay. Either one of those options, you can get a hold of somebody. You're going to press 1 to talk to somebody on the line right then and there. They have trained professionals there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in the need of having somebody there to help them circumnavigate and to get through a crisis. Okay. If it's not that severe to where you need to call that number, okay, that's good. That's a start. But understand that help comes in a lot of different forms. Sometimes you just need to vent and listen and have somebody, you know, listen to you while you get all these ramblings and bad thoughts out of your head. I know that if I got stuff bogging me, I call this guy right here. I was talking to him and his wife last night. Really doing the old sideways thing. I was talking to him and his wife last night. They were giving me some advice on something, and you know, it works because they know me. They understand who I am. They understand, you know, the dynamic of my life and everything else. So sometimes, you know, a listening ear comes in the shape of a family member, a friend, a coworker. Hell, sometimes it's somebody in the military you served with. You know, who better to understand what you've gone through if it's something, you know, post-traumatic stress related or it's combat related, you know, it's trauma response or something like that, than somebody you might have served with. And who better to help you sort out the pieces or just to listen while you vent about the things than somebody you might have served with. Okay. Whatever that person looks like, don't be afraid to reach out. There's so many people that feel like they're going to be a burden to other people, and that's not true. We are obligated not only to each other to do this show, but we're obligated to the rest of our community as veterans to help us to say, hey, we've lost too many fucking people. Enough's enough. You deserve to be here. You need to tell your experiences and your stories and your wisdom on to the next generation. And we need to be able to sit down and laugh over the dark, awful shit and have a beer and cry if we need to and all that kind of stuff. So, in the event you need help, reach out to somebody, seek help wherever that is available to you. Okay. This is what we're trying to stop. And actually, this is not correct anymore. It's actually a lot higher. I've heard reports saying it's as high as 40 a day, which is just God fucking awful. And we need to stop that. Okay.
Yeah.
So, in the event that you're not in a good place, just remember those 4 things: be tenacious, refuse to surrender, obliterate your obstacles, seek out help in a time of need. If you can do those 4 things, you're going to give yourself the opportunity to get on a better path. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to hand it off to this gentleman over here. He's going to do all the other stuff, and then we're going to wrap it up for this week. So take it away.
So, my friends, if you'd like to catch us on social medias, there are multiple places you can catch us. One of which being Facebook. Okay. If you go over to the Facebook, all you got to do is go to facebook.com/battlebros.podcast. And you'll find our page there where there'll be multiple links linking you to pretty much everywhere else, including our YouTube. Now that I've been slowly but surely uploading videos onto the Rumble, which you can catch us over on the Rumble as well at rumble.com. Just look for Battle Bros, all one word, and our episodes will pop up. Our episodes that I have been uploading onto Rumble, I'm not 100% if it's every episode I upload to Rumble lately, but whenever I do upload episodes to Rumble, there are occasions where an episode will upload from Rumble onto the Facebook. So you can catch little snippets of our episodes there on our actual Facebook page.
So that's doing that automatically? That's not you doing that?
It's doing it automatically, yes.
I mean, hey, a little bit of extra, attention can't hurt.
Hell yes. Also, if you like to catch us over on the Instagram, you can do that at BattleBros_podcast. We also have an X. I'm trying to get a little bit more active on there because, X has gotten a little bit more popular nowadays. And you could catch us over there. At Battle Bros PC. I'm dog.
You can catch it. You look like a damn marionette puppet, just like you're like Fire Marshal Bill over here, for God's sake.
You can catch us over on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Battle Bros PC. And on every single one of those platforms that I've mentioned, you could write us on the instant messaging platforms. Write us comments, write us some messages, whatever. To whether it's hey, you guys should cover this subject, or hey, you guys did really good on this last episode, or we appreciate any input we get. And trust me, we do listen, and we do try to put as much of what is said into action. Also, if you want to catch us on audio platforms, you can catch us on Spotify. You can catch us on Amazon Music. You can catch us on, I believe are we on YouTube Music?
I'm not 100% certain.
I'm actually curious now. I'm like, you know what? Find us. find us on Amazon Music as well as iHeart Radio if you're an iHeart listener. Which is actually pretty cool. The fact that we're on iHeart is still a fairly big platform, and I really like the fact that we are on that we are on that we are on why am I having a total freaking brain fart? iHeart.
You're tired.
I really am, dude.
It's all good. We're almost done, man.
Yeah. And it's pretty cool to be on such a multifaceted amount of freaking platforms. Like we've got a whole bunch available to us right now, and dude, I couldn't be happier with that. I really couldn't be happier with that.
So to interrupt real quick, if I may, if you are wanting to get in touch with us or check out those platforms that we have, if you go to our YouTube page on our homepage of our channel, Battle Bros Podcast, you can actually click on any of the links. And click on the links. It'll take you to all those platforms that he had mentioned just a few seconds ago. You can go on to our X, Instagram, all that good stuff, Facebook. You name it, it's there. So check it out. All right, continue.
Indeed. Also, if you would like to contact us, say just a little bit more privately, because you're not exactly sure if maybe yourself or an individual that you know really wants to make a lot of things public, we do have our own private email where you can contact us, which is, I just had it and I lost it. Hold on. There it is. Which is battlebrospc@gmail.com. That is, once again, battlebrospc@gmail.com. And once again, like I said, message us episode ideas, comments, all that good stuff. But again, most importantly, definitely get on there and definitely get on there and just let us know what you guys are feeling. Again, it could be yourself, it could be for a family member, friend, battle buddy, doesn't matter. Because a lot of the times, or I should say sometimes, the message just isn't for you. Maybe it's for someone you know. And that 22 a day is a big problem for us. And we God, if it is higher, geez, I don't even want to think about it. But if it is higher, yeah, definitely. Let us know. We want to help whoever, however we can, and we're willing to talk to them and bring them off the precipice, if you will, if we need to. Beyond that, man, I've got nothing. My brain is a fog because I am like bleh. So
it's like a sponge. It's full of dirty dishwater, and you just need to wring it out, go to sleep. So,
yeah,
thank you so much for joining us this evening. We appreciate all of the continued viewer and listenership of our platform here. We're not trying to get to the point of being so big and famous that we forget where we came from, but we would like your help in getting us to that next level. So please feel free to pass it along, pay it forward. You never know who needs to hear the message that we have to give to others. It might not be for you. It might be for you to hear, to pass it on to somebody that really needs to hear it. And that is so crucially important nowadays. So we can't do that without your help. Again, thank you for watching and listening. It's amazing to see that we've had viewers from all over the world, people in Europe and Spain and Italy and stuff. It's just like, wow.
That one still surprises me whenever I looked at those. Whenever I looked at that.
I mean, it's amazing to just be a part of something like that. So,
Mhm.
but again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh yeah, and thank you for watching and listening, and for taking part in this journey with us. We appreciate you. We cannot do this without you. You are just as much a part of it as we are. So we cannot do this without you. So please remember that there is someone here to help, and it comes in various different forms, whether it's us, whether it's somebody else. Okay. Um, that's really all I got for tonight. So thank you again for stopping by. This has been episode 104, entitled Obligation of the Battle Bros podcast. Please remember that you need to be here, you need to stay here, and we need to tell your story. And we can only do that by keeping you around. Okay.
Hell yes.
Until we meet again next time, just remember that be tenacious, refuse to surrender, obliterate your obstacles, seek out help in a time of need. If you can do that, you're going to be putting yourself on a path of success. Okay. So until next time, this is Battle Bros podcast with Mac and Alamo. Thank you so much. And we will see you soon.
Battle Bros out.